Shut your mouth, broadcasting. First round draft pick. Believe we got stats, kid. Quarterback sacking, 100-yard dashing. So tap in for the action. What teams got traction? What teams are losing? Franchises ruined. Fans in the stand booing. Playing.
Welcome to the SYM Podcast show. I'm your co-host Sirik, and I'm always joined by my co-host Ron. What up, Ron?
What's going on?
You know what we do? We talk about the NFL on a weekly basis, including the playoffs, and this is Super Bowl week. What up?
Let's go.
KC, Philadelphia, where you at? All right, so we got our Super Bowl week. We got our Super Bowl picks. And Ron, last week, I actually gave you the wrong numbers. I gave you the wrong numbers for our total tally because, let me just explain this. I was looking at it today and I was like, wow, I can't believe we made 213 picks. And then I was like, no, that's way too much. There's no way that we made. So then I did the math again, and it was actually only 69 picks that we did.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, that makes more sense. So when I did the math and I did the division and we're actually at 58% win percentage, not 20, 58. So, okay. Which is not bad.
Respectable.
That's not bad. We are over 500, so that's not bad. So yeah. This is what we have scheduled for this show. We're gonna do the NFL news, which is not that much. We're gonna do the Super Bowl team rosters. We're gonna see which team has the advantage, and then we're gonna do our predictions for the Super Bowl. So let's go. Without further ado, let's go. So Ron, the Niners picked up your boy Flores as a defensive coordinator.
The Vikings,
excuse me. Mm-hmm. So is this ultimately what he wanted? He just wanted to get out of this Pittsburgh?
Well, I mean, at Pittsburgh, he wasn't a coordinator or anything. It's like a linebackers coach, I think was his title, quote unquote title. So this is a promotion for him. He probably wanted a head coaching job. And I think he had a couple interviews for head coach. It doesn't appear that he was going to get it. So I think, defensive coordinator was a good move.
The other news was the Niners are gonna get Steve Wilks as a defensive coordinator. Did he want out of Carolina? I don't understand why he just got up and left.
Well, he was the interim coach, right?
Right.
Went a different way. They probably told him that they weren't going to retain him. So he's just looking for an opportunity. San Francisco is a great place for him to be. And I do think if he continues to do well as a coordinator, and I'm assuming he will with that defense, that he'll have a real head coaching opportunity at some point.
So both these guys wanted to be head coaches, right? Because one was a head coach with Miami. The other one was a head coach with the Niners. With Carolina. So ultimately, they want to be head coaches again, right?
I think so. Yeah. At some point, want to get promoted and be at that head coaching level.
And so we know that Brian Flores can do it, and we know that this is what Steve Wilks can definitely do it. He did it with Arizona. He did it with Carolina, where, he took over a bunch of. It was. Not that ultimately they won the division, but at least they made it. Yeah, right. They competed, right?
Yep, they played hard. They competed every week, and it seemed like they responded to him, as that leader in the locker room. So I don't know. I'm assuming it was a pretty tough, decision when it comes down to it, whether they were, help him or not. He seems to be a guy that players like to play for, so I think he'll bounce back and land on his feet somewhere as head coach at some point.
Yeah, I don't think these guys are gonna, these are survivors, right? I feel like both of these guys, they're not gonna settle down. They're gonna keep moving on up until they become head coaches themselves. I think, that whole thing with Brian Flores and the NFL and the lawsuit, I don't know if that's going away anytime soon, but it just, it's that balance between I want to be a successful head coach, but I also want to, basically point where the discrimination is, right? All right, so let's get into it. Let's get into it because I broke down which team has the advantage. And Ron, when I mentioned these different positions, you just say either Philly or KC. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it. I think for some of the positions it might be a little bit difficult. Might have to talk through it a little bit, but yeah, let's go.
All right, so let's start with the offense, and let's start with QB. Ron, which team do you think has the advantage? Do you think KC or Philadelphia?
I'm going to assume Mahomes is relatively healthy. What that means, I don't know. Maybe 70% of what he is. Same thing for Hurts. I think they're both like not 100%. But obviously, Mahomes is a better quarterback at this stage. Now, can he show that in the Super Bowl on one leg? That's what I'm a little bit worried about. Even though he played well last week, I think the advantage probably goes to Kansas City.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think looking back, I know that both QBs are hurt. Both of them are not at 100%, but I would have to give it to Mahomes just because he's been there. He's done what it takes. He's, this is mostly a passing offense, which suits him. And we've actually seen that all year round that he puts up 300 yards easy. So I'm going to give it to Mahomes. On the wide receivers, Ron, what do you think has the advantage? KC or Philadelphia?
Easily Philadelphia to me, between A.J. Brown and who's the other receiver? They got Devontae Smith and Watkins. To me, that's an easy win for Philly in terms of matchups, receiver matchups.
I went back and forth with this one because I know that Philly has those two studs with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, but I feel like with KC you have so many. You have Kelsey, then you have Wallace Candling, then you have Tony, which we're not sure if he's gonna play or not, right? Then you have Juju Smith. So I think just because you have so many options at receiver, I'm going to go with KC on this one. I think that there's just too many receivers for Mahomes to pass it to. I had the rosters for each team up, but I really, really like this KC wide receiver, including the tight end. Well, I don't know. Who's the Philly tight end?
Goddard.
Yeah, he's pretty good, isn't he?
Right. And, Kansas City receiving crew, they have some injuries that they're dealing with too. But, all those guys you listed, to me, are like number 2, 3s, whereas Philly has 2 legitimate number 1 receivers. And Goddard, is a really good tight end too. He's not like, obviously, Kelsey, but I still give the advantage to Philly, the receiving cap.
The next one that we're talking about is running backs. Ron, do you think KC or Philadelphia?
I think this one is even. It's a coin flip for me. Kansas City has Chico is a really good physical running back that they can lean on for big plays. Then what they've been able to do with McKinnon, I think they activated Edward Hilaire. I think in the 3rd year. He's a good running back too. I think they all complement each other. But the same thing I could say about Philly and their running backs. I think Miles is obviously a more of a consistent, 3-down running back. But Kenneth Gainwell has played extremely well. He's obviously the more explosive player, I think, at this point. So, I think it's a toss-up, to be quite honest, with the running back.
I actually like the Eagles running back. I was looking. I know Sanders. I think he's a 1A running back. I was looking back at the games that he's had where he's actually gone over 100 yards. And he's had about 3 or 4 games where Sanders, against Jacksonville, he had 134 yards. Against New York Giants, he had 144. They're not great defenses, but at least you know that you have 1A running back. With Kansas City, I know that they have Pacheco, they have McKinnon, they have Hillard, but looking back at the Kansas City, none of those players went over 100 yards in all 17 games.
Yeah, but that, to me, that doesn't mean anything, right? Kansas City comes onto the field throwing, and they leave the field throwing. That's just their offense that they like to play. So it's not as bad or atrocious as Buffalo, where they completely abandoned the run. But Pacheco and McKinnon are capable of going 100 yards if they get sufficient carries. I just don't think that's the style of football Andy Reid likes to play, likes to throw it all over the field. But in terms of talent, I think, both teams have talented running backs. I think Philadelphia, they're going to run the ball without a doubt. They're going to try to make sure it's, they're playing both sides, right? Passing and running. They're not going to be one.
And I stand corrected. There was one game where Pacheco went over 100 yards against the LA Chargers. So it's not that, listen, like you said, maybe that's not their style is, running or rushing the ball, but you have to have a running back where you can get 3 yards, you can get 4 yards. If you're going to get 3 or 4 yards by passing the ball, I don't know what to tell you. I think hopefully that's been working, as you can see, but I just want somebody that if it's third down and short, you can actually give the ball to and they'll get the first down. Yeah, I just don't have that kind of confidence with the Kansas City running back.
I do. I think they're both, they're all capable. All the running backs in Kansas City, I think they've done it when they needed to get 2 or 3 yards. They can easily do that. But I think it's just a preference. To me, it's like Buffalo. We talk every year about Buffalo having to draft a running back. Well, they've drafted 1 million running backs. They're all good, but it's makes no difference if you don't use them when you need to. So, it's just Andy Reid, his style of football. He likes to throw. And, but trust me, Philly is going to be prepared, for Chico. They're just not going to overlook him and say, okay, they're not going to run the ball. They're going to run. Kansas City's going to need to a little bit Mahomes, a little bit gimpy.
Well, that's what I mean. If you're going to lean on a running back, you want somebody that you can say he can get the extra yards. And I think with this Philly defense, I don't know. We'll talk about the defense, but because I was looking back at there, and you can actually rush against the Philly defense. You can't really pass, but you can definitely rush against them. Tight ends. Which one do you like, Kansas City or Philadelphia?
Kansas City. I think Kelsey's just the beast. He's obviously the best tight end, I think, in the NFL at this point. So it's Kansas City.
Yeah, I think with Kelsey, he's up there with Gronkowski. He's up there with who's the tight ends that it was an automatic. That guy for the Giants, Barbaro. He's just that good.
That's old school, Barbaro.
Yeah, he's just that good. He can, he can catch the ball right out of the backfield. You can go one-on-one. You can do so many things. I definitely like the Kansas City tight ends. Offensive line. Who do you think has the advantage, Ron? Philadelphia or Kansas City?
Philly. I think they have the best O-line in the league, hands down. I think, and Kansas City has a very good offensive line too. But I think Philadelphia, they'll protect Jalen. They're very huge and powerful when it comes to the running game. I just think the Philly O-line best in the league.
I think this might be a tie for me, only because when I looked at the sacks allowed, I saw that Philly did allow a lot of sacks against Kansas City. Kansas City, if I'm looking at this right, they only allowed so many sacks throughout the year. But that doesn't mean that Philly has a bad offensive line, right? I think, to me, that's a toss-up, because if you want a line that's going to push the defense back, you want the Philly line, right? Will the rushing yards and all that stuff. But then if you want a passing offensive line, you're probably going to take Kansas City's line. Even though I do think the Orlando Brown might be a little bit overrated at tackle. So to me, it might be a toss-up. Just because Philadelphia this year was so one-dimensional at times. All they did was rush. Looking back at some of the stats that Hurst put up during the year, there were times where he didn't even reach the 200 plateau. He didn't have to, but that just means he didn't pass the ball that much, right?
You need to, right?
I don't know. I think this might be a tie. I just know that Andy Reid likes, to go fast, no huddle, blah, blah, blah. I don't feel like Philadelphia is going to be doing any of that. It's just smash mouth football. So to me, that goes to both teams. Anything else on offense before we move on to defense?
No, I think for the most part, offensively, both these teams are fairly even. I think when we talked about it last week in terms of points scored, I believe they were 1 and 2, if I'm not mistaken. Kansas City was number 1 in total points scored per game compared to Philly, but they were neck and neck. So these are two explosive offensive units, and I think they'll be more than capable of putting up some points on Sunday.
Yeah, I think looking at the stats right now, Kansas City was number 1 and the Eagles were number 2 as far as points scored. And then the difference stops right there, because then one did it over the air, the other one did it on the ground. So that's where the difference stops. Okay, so moving on to the defense. Let's start with the linebackers. Ron, which team has the advantage, Kansas City or Philadelphia?
I'll probably give it to Kansas City. I think their linebackers are a little bit better than Philly. I think they're both Gayer, and I think Chanel's a rookie. Might be wrong about that, but they're some good linebackers in Kansas City.
Yeah, I think Kansas City has experience with the linebackers, but I do like what the Eagles are doing as far as the linebackers is concerned. They're young. What do they play? They play a 34 defense, I think, right? So they rush. They have these 2 outside linebackers who they just rush the quarterback. And I think that could be a recipe for disaster if I was the Kansas City Chiefs and I was dropping back to pass, and these 2 guys are coming full speed, right? So I'm looking at the roster right now. So they got a rookie, Dean. They got Briley. Then they got TJ Edwards. I like the attack, but I like the Kansas City experience. So to me, I'm going to have to give it to Kansas City just because they have that experience as far as playing in the playoffs. Because this is only, we're gonna get to the coaches, but this is only the Eagles head coach second or third year. What year is this?
I'm not sure. I think it's the second.
I think it's second. The first year, Tampa Bay took care of them, but that wasn't like a gimme game, right? I mean, I don't remember what the final score was, but I know the whole game we were playing catch up.
Last year, Tampa ran through them pretty easily.
Yeah,
but Jalen is a different quarterback today than he was last year.
All right, well, we'll see, because the next up is the cornerback. Ron, what's your choice?
These are two pretty good secondaries. I think it's a toss-up here, personally. I think both guys, or all the guys secondary for both of these teams, are more than capable of creating and getting turnovers. So I'll have them rated equally.
So I was looking at the ranking, right? Because I was just saying, like, how were these defenses against the pass? How was it against the rush? And, to my surprise, they were kind of, as far as passing goes, Eagles were number one. Those cornerbacks were really, really good. Nobody got too deep. They didn't give up a lot of touchdowns during the year. They were actually really, really good. So I'm actually going to give the cornerbacks for the Eagles a nod, just because they played so well during the year. And I think with the Kansas City Chiefs, they were kind of up and down. Some teams scored a lot of points, some teams didn't score a lot of points. That's why I am going with the Eagles as far as cornerbacks concerned. Ron, what about safeties? Where do you what's your notch goes?
Let's see. You got Epps and Gardner Johnson in Philly. And the Chiefs got Thornhill and Reed. I'm probably going to give it to Philly here, most likely, in terms of who has the upper hand. But again, I think it's the whole secondary. And I think both of these groups are fair.
Yeah, the same thing. I'm just because they played so well during the year, I'm gonna give it to the Philly as far as safeties. And this is the one that I wanna hear where you stand. Defensive line. Do you think it's Kansas City or Philadelphia?
This is tough. I think both of these D lines are pretty tough. I'm going to go with Philly here. And I think Chris Jones is probably the best defensive player, will be the best defensive player on the field come Sunday. He's best nose tackle, one of the best in the league. But I think in terms of depth in Philly across the board on their D line, it's just be really tough. Talk about them picking up Indominus too. I don't know what part of the year they picked him up, but for him to be in there, stopping the run and getting some pressure on the quarterback, they just have an extreme amount of depth in Philly. And whereas Kansas City, to me, I feel like if it's not Chris Jones, I don't know who else is stepping up on the D line to make a play.
Yeah, this is the one where I was really surprised with Philly. I know that they can bring people in, all the time, keep them fresh, but you can actually run on this defense, because when I looked at the ranking all year, as far as rush defenses, the Chiefs' rush defense was actually better. As far as ranking, I'm just looking at the numbers here. They were 6th overall in yards allowed, compared to the Eagles, which were all the way down to 16th. So and that's just because what you say, it was a passing, right? So a lot of teams, when Kansas City got ahead, they weren't going to run the ball that much, right? A lot of teams were just going to pass the ball. So I think that kind of skewed the numbers a little bit as far as the rushing. The touchdowns allowed are almost the same. 14 for the Chiefs, 16 for the Eagles. I mean, to me, and that's why ultimately, if you keep the game close, I think that you can beat this Philly team if you rush the ball. But we know that that's not Kansas City offense, right? Ron, this is one that I looked to see if I could find any info on this. Which one do you like more, the kickers for Philly or the kickers for Kansas City?
Nope. I couldn't really tell you. I know, but like Eagles use Jake Elliott. Been around for a while. Same as Butler, right? Harrison Butler. I don't know who has the advantage there. I don't know how much I expect I don't know if I expect a lot of field goals to happen regardless. To be honest with you, I think these teams are going to be scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, I kind of decided that this was a wash because it wasn't that the information I say is that I didn't really look it up because I don't think it's going to come down to a kick for these teams, right? It's going to come down to whoever scores a touchdown. What about returners? Which team has the advantage there?
I think Kansas City has what? There's Tony that returns kicks, and Philly uses Boston Scott, Kobe, like Devontae Smith at the second string. I don't know if there's an advantage there for either of these, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't see, like, throughout the year there wasn't a highlight reel where I was like, wow, that guy, for Kansas City really is a real returner, or that guy for Philadelphia is a real returner. So I kind of gave this a wash too. I mean, really, unless you are like a hardcore bettor and you're like, oh, this guy's going to score a touchdown in the first quarter by a return. I mean, who's, really that's to me, that's a wash. What about coaches? What do you think about coaches? Who has the advantage in the coaches?
Andy Reid, for sure. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league, probably top 2 or 3 coaches in the NFL right now. So I think he, for me, has the advantage there.
I also had Andy Reid for the experience, even though he did that ring around the rosy thing against the Raiders. I don't know. I still don't know why he did that. But I just think the Philly coach really, every time I see him on an interview or anytime he's in the podium speaking, I feel like he's a fanboy, right? He just says it like it is. He acts like he's being disrespectful or disrespected. I just don't get good vibes from him. He might beat Andy Reid on Sunday, but I mean, why even do the whole rah rah rah?
I don't know. He does seem like a little bit of a douchebag, a punchable face, if you will. But hey, obviously he's a decent coach. He got his team Super Bowl. So, see what happens.
Ron, and this one I left for last because I want you to get a feel for this. Who has the advantage when it comes to fans? Kansas City or Philadelphia?
And it won't make a difference in the Super Bowl anyways, right? Most of the people that are going to these games are, through corporate, and they're not like real, I don't want to say they're not real NFL fans, but, both these teams have good Philly fans, are hardcore. But Kansas City, one of the loudest stadiums to play in, I think they they travel pretty well too. So there's a lot of Kansas City fans all throughout the country now, especially with all being the quarterback. So I don't think there's any advantage or disadvantage there at all.
Yeah, I think this one is not applicable as far as, this particular game is concerned, but it is applicable whoever wins, right? Because if Kansas City wins, I feel like the fans will just talk. But if Philadelphia wins, that city is burning down. That city might get, might be like the Chicago Fire. I just don't. When it comes to class, I'll give that to the Kansas City Chiefs. But when it comes to like hardcore, do or die, I'm going to go with the Eagles. I mean, this is not applicable, but I'm just saying these are two fan bases that are really opposites from each other. That's what I want to say is that one is all talk and the other one is going to be like all action. So if the Eagles win, lock your doors if you live in Philadelphia because they will burn that city to the ground. So we went through the roster. We now know which team you think we think has the advantage. So Ron, here comes the moment of truth. Philly is favored by 1.5. It's a 51 over and under. What is your prediction?
I'm going over. I'll start there. I think the winner gets to 30 points. So I'm going to say Philly 30, and I'll give Kansas City 27.
So you think it's gonna be more by a field goal then? 3 points.
Yeah, I think it'll be a close game. But I do think both teams will be scoring they'll be going up and down the field pretty much easier than it's probably been throughout the playoff.
Yeah, you went over. I'm actually gonna go under, and I'm actually going to pick Kansas City to win this game 24-17. I think that even though both teams were 1 and 2 during the year scoring, I think it's going to come down to defense, and I trust Spagnolia to have something. To me it comes down to experience, right? Andy Reid has the experience. Spagnolia has the experience. What's the Kansas City offensive coordinator? Bieniemy has the experience. Hell, he's been looked beyond for many head coaching jobs, and he's definitely has the experience, right?
Right, but I mean, I don't know. I think both of these teams are going to be able to score. It really is going to come down to who has the ball last, and can anybody on defense make a play? Step up and make a play.
Yeah, and that's gonna pretty much define this Super Bowl. I like Jalen Hurts. I don't feel like, I wouldn't say he's the same category as Dak, but I just don't trust him the same way I trust Mahomes, right? That's why I'm going with Kansas City. I look at him and it kind of reminds me of a Cam Newton when he played in the Super Bowl. He was kind of like shell shocked. He wasn't sure of himself, and Denver just ran right over them. I think I'm getting those kind of vibes from Jalen Hurts.
No, I don't get that at all. This dude has played the biggest stage of his career many a time, whether at Alabama or here in the NFL now. I don't think anything phases him. He's like calm and relaxed, and
Wait, but wasn't Tua replaced him in Alabama when they went for the So I don't know. That's the thing. It's like, I don't know. I just get real vibes with him being this kind of stage. So I'm gonna go with experience over, because everyone's picking Philadelphia to win.
Well, I think everyone's picking it. It wouldn't be just the point spread if that was the case. So it should be a good game. It's a pretty even game. It can go either way. But I think I thought Philadelphia was going to get there to begin with. I think just have the most complete team, top to bottom. And then Kansas City has a really, really good team, but it's Mahomes that's been driving that, right? It's not their receivers outside of Kelsey. It's not really the running game. It's really about Mahomes. Whereas, in Philadelphia, I can point to quite a few players that have contributed this year.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see this game. This should be an exciting game. And then we'll have the wrap up, the Super Bowl review, and then we'll take a break. We'll let the free agency hit the market, and then we'll go into the draft, and then we'll take a couple of months off because we need it. Yes. So with that said, what do you tell the team? What do you tell the audience, Ron?
Enjoy the Super Bowl. Eat lots of food, drink lots of beer or alcohol, and just enjoy it because this is it. Football is over.
After this, it's done.
Yeah, so enjoy it as much as you can, and then take a break and get ready for next year.
Yeah, just get ready for next year. So, and back in September, it'll be back to square one.
Yep.
All right. So in that case, I say peace.
Hey guys, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Any questions or comments, feel free to hit us up on Shut Your Mouth Podcast at gmail.com. That's ShutYM Podcast at gmail.com. You can also hit us on Twitter or on Instagram at SYM Podcast. Thanks again.